Did you know that some of Jim Carrey's most memorable scenes were never in the script?
He took off on us! What? One more watt and you'll be a light bulb! What?
From accidental falls, improvised lines, and moments that made the entire set collapse with laughter, today we'll show you how Jim Carrey turned mistakes and random occurrences into pure cinematic gold. Get ready, because after watching this, you'll never see his movies the same way again. In Liar Liar, there's a moment in the elevator where Jim's character makes a suggestive remark.
Well, that's because you have big jugs.
Then he tries to cover it up, but the funniest part is when he awkwardly mutters "Mama" under his breath.
Mama!
That was totally improvised, and it was so weird and perfect that director Tom Shadyac decided to keep it. In Fun with Dick and Jane, there's a moment where Jim Carrey falls from the roof during a robbery and misses the desk he was supposed to land on. The fall wasn't planned. He hit the floor directly, but didn't break character. He just picked up the printout sheet as if nothing happened and kept the scene going. In The Grinch, there's a moment where the Grinch pulls a tablecloth off a table, leaving all the dishes perfectly in place. That wasn't supposed to happen. Jim planned to knock everything over, but when he saw the dishes didn't fall, he turned around and smashed them all in a fit of frustration. The spontaneity of the moment fit perfectly with the character's chaos and stayed in the movie. In Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, there's a scene where Ace passes by a cellist at a fancy party and suddenly yanks his arm mid-solo, making him play a terrible note. That moment was 100% improvised. Jim did it just to mess with him, and the cellist's reaction is completely real. In The Mask, when Jim's character faces a street gang, he starts making balloon animals to distract them, but by accident, he pulls out a condom and says, "Oops, wrong pocket."
Sorry, wrong pocket.
That line wasn't scripted. Jim improvised it right then, and it became one of the funniest moments in the movie.
Sorry, wrong pocket.
In Man on the Moon, there's a scene where Jim Carrey, playing Andy Kaufman, jumps into a wrestling ring and starts yelling at the audience.
Are you listening to me?
Many of those reactions weren't planned. Jim just went into the ring and unleashed himself, just as Kaufman would. The energy was so real, they decided to keep it exactly as it was. In Bruce Almighty, there's a scene where Bruce answers prayers by email. Jim starts typing at an absurd speed, his fingers going wild. That speed wasn't scripted. Jim just went with it, hilariously channeling Bruce's powers. In a jacuzzi sketch, Jim Carrey plays an over-the-top lifeguard at a hotel hot tub. The scene was so absurd that Will Ferrell almost couldn't keep it together. But it was Jim's dramatic seriousness that finally broke Ferrell into laughter.
That's okay, sir. You don't have to thank me.
In Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, there's a moment where Ace is driving through the jungle with his guide and suddenly starts singing "Chitty Chitty Bang Bang" at the top of his lungs. Jim forgot his line and started singing. Even his co-star couldn't help laughing while covering his ears.
Bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, chitty bang bang, yeah!
In The Mask, right after Stanley puts the mask on for the first time, he looks in the mirror and says, "Smokin'."
Smokin'!
That line wasn't written. Jim improvised it on the spot, and it became one of the most iconic catchphrases of the movie.
Look, Ma! I'm roadkill!
In Liar Liar, there's a scene where Jim Carrey runs to stop his ex-wife from leaving and suddenly trips on the sidewalk. The fall was real, but Jim kept acting and finished the scene.
Oh, hold on, wait!
In another scene from Me, Myself, and Irene, Jim Carrey and Renee Zellweger are about to push a car off a cliff. Jim was supposed to do a slow countdown, but he sped through it ridiculously fast.
On 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
He improvised it right there, and you can see how Renee almost breaks character. In Me, Myself, and Irene, there's a moment where Jim's character says goodbye to his 3 kids before leaving. Right before he goes, he bends down and asks them for a kiss. That wasn't in the script. You can see how the first 2 play along, but the third one hesitates. That little pause from the kid makes it even funnier, showing how even in family scenes, Jim found ways to play with the actor's natural reactions. In The Truman Show, there's a scene where Jim Carrey draws an astronaut helmet on the mirror using a bar of soap. Jim used to do things like that at home. It was a personal gesture he wanted to bring into Truman's character, a man trapped in a fictional world searching for small freedoms. There was another take where he drew a wig and a dress, but the helmet was the one that made the final cut because it perfectly reflected his desire to escape. In Dumb and Dumber, there's a moment where Jim Carrey passes by an old newspaper on the wall that says, "We landed on the moon." That wasn't in the script. He saw the headline and improvised on the spot. It fit the character so perfectly that it became one of the funniest lines in the entire film.
We landed on the moon!
In Dumb and Dumber, there's a moment where Lloyd walks out of a 7-Eleven and sees 2 guys drinking big gulps. He stops and says, "Big gulps, huh? Well, see you later."
Oh, big gulps, huh? All right.
Those guys weren't even actors. They were just there watching the filming. Jim improvised the whole interaction, and it became one of the most random and funniest moments in the film.
Well, see you later.
In the short film Pecan Pie, Jim Carrey drives a bed-turned car while singing Elvis style. The whole concept was a spontaneous idea between Jim and director Michel Gondry. They filmed the scene with almost no planning, capturing genuine reactions from bystanders. The mix of absurdity and Jim's charisma made it unforgettable. In The Cable Guy, there's a scene where Jim Carrey puts chicken skin on his face and does a Hannibal Lecter impression from The Silence of the Lambs.
Hello, Clarice. It's good to see you again.
That wasn't in the script. He improvised the whole thing. You can even see Matthew Broderick trying not to laugh. In Lemony Snicket's, Jim Carrey forgets one of his lines in his first scene as Count Olaf. Instead of stopping, he turns to the child and says, "Those were my lines, kid."
Let me do that one more time. Give me the line again.
It worked so well they decided to keep that take.
Our parents just died.
Wait. Let me do that one more time. Give me the line again.
In Yes Man, there's a scene where Jim Carrey and Zooey Deschanel jump on stage and start singing Can't Buy Me Love. That wasn't in the script.
We don't need those diamond rings.
They sang it live without rehearsals. It made the moment feel much more real, so they kept it in the final cut.
The money just can't buy.
In Batman Forever, Jim Carrey plays the Riddler, and there's a scene where he shows up in a flashy outfit and says, "Riddle me this."
It keeps me safe when I'm jogging at night.
That line wasn't in the script. Jim was still early in his big-budget career, but was already famous for throwing out improvised lines that always worked. In Dumb and Dumber 2, there's a scene where Harry visits Lloyd in a psychiatric hospital. For years, Lloyd hasn't spoken a word, just sitting there unresponsive. Jim improvised most of the scene. He kept the character serious for a long time, and then flipped the moment unexpectedly, in a way only he could.
Got ya!
Even Jeff Daniels didn't see it coming.
I got you so good!
In Liar Liar, there's a scene where Jim's character tries to get out of a trial by beating himself up in a bathroom. And it's not just a few slaps. He throws himself against the walls, punches the air, even smashes his head on the floor. Almost all of it was improvised. He did it with such intensity that he ended up with real bruises during filming. In Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a scene in the lab where Robotnik starts dancing like a maniac. That entire sequence was Jim Carrey's idea. He choreographed it himself, made the crew laugh so hard that they decided to leave it exactly as it was. Each of these scenes proves that Jim Carrey's genius doesn't just come from what's written for him, but from how he can turn any situation into an unforgettable spectacle. Now I ask you, which of these improvisations surprised you the most? Had you noticed any of them while watching the movies? Let me know in the comments. I want to read your theories. In Yes Man, there's a scene where Jim's character shocks everyone by speaking fluent Korean. Jim decided to learn the basics of the language to give the scene authenticity. His commitment made the moment both impressive and hilarious.